Throughout modern history, there's always been discussion over which type of power is best. With the decline of fossil fuels and a renewed concern for the environment, the question remains on which type of renewable energy will surpass coal and oil and become the energy of the future. Now, when people think of renewable energy, they normally think of solar panels and wind turbines and geothermal energy. But what if I told you that nuclear energy is actually the safest, most efficient, and effective form of energy for the future? That's right, nuclear energy. Now, nuclear power is the best form of energy, period, and we need to stop giving massive funding towards the oil industry and instead funnel it towards nuclear energy. Nuclear energy must become the focus of our energy department. We must transition the subsidies from the coal and oil industries and instead funnel them towards the nuclear industry, which will create more jobs and more benefits for people and benefit America as a whole. To explain why, first I'm going to be going over and talking about the safety of nuclear power plants, then the benefits of nuclear power and its industry, and finally I'm going to be discussing and attacking some of the arguments that have been made against nuclear power for decades. Now, the first question that everyone brings up when it comes to nuclear power is safety. How safe is a nuclear power plant, really? Well, according to Forbes, for every 1 trillion kilowatt hours produced of power, nuclear energy kills 0.1 people. To put this into a comparison, coal kills 10,000 people for every trillion kilowatt hours of energy. Now, what exactly is a trillion kilowatt hours of energy? It seems like an overly large number that doesn't really have any relevance in modern day life. Well, 1 trillion kilowatt hours of energy is enough to power Los Angeles for 1,213 years. And it takes 10 times this long in order for nuclear power in the United States to directly kill one person. Coal will have killed 10,000 times as many people in the same amount of time. Now, the deaths caused by nuclear energy are mostly due to the weapons aspect of science and weapons manufacturing. And when it comes to the worldwide aspect, death per trillion are up to 90. But this is solely because of Chernobyl. Yes, the major counter-arguments against nuclear power is the Chernobyl and Fukushima disasters. And while yes, they were nuclear, they were a product of their time. Chernobyl is widely outdated by 50 years. A modern power plant in America with American safety standards would never fail like Chernobyl. And I mean never. In fact, the type of reactor that Chernobyl was built into doesn't even exist anymore. It's not possible to be built, and it's not possible to fail in that aspect, due to the regulations under the NRC, which we're going to be going over in a few minutes. Now, Fukushima was caused by a natural disaster, and while they are unavoidable, modern plants are built to withstand disasters exactly like the one in Fukushima, which again was an older model. It was also due to mismanagement and the lack of proper decision-making that caused the Fukushima event to actually occur. Nuclear energy is the future, and we need to stop basing fears on the past. Now, for the benefits of nuclear energy. Now that we have the safety issues out of the way, what are the benefits of nuclear power? Well, first, nuclear energy is a clean form of energy. It's renewable and requires very minimal resources to operate. Nuclear reactors are overseen by the NRC, the Nuclear Regulatory Commission, that makes sure that nuclear reactors are running safely, efficiently, and effectively, and they prevent disasters like the one in Chernobyl and Fukushima from happening. Now, NEI estimates that each nuclear reactor running has between 500 and 1,000 jobs per site, and the NRC regulates the employees at these sites to make sure that they are safe and effective and not getting a problematic dose of radiation. Now, to put this into perspective again, the dose of radiation on an commercial aircraft pilot over a year is actually more than a NRC member would actually be receiving when they are working on a nuclear power plant. To take some personal experience, the Idaho National Laboratory is the largest provider of jobs in the area where I live. It's actually has multiple sites that employ thousands of people on their own, and my dad is actually an employee of one of these sites. Now, according to the NEI estimation of 500 to 1,000, that's just at the reactor itself. Nuclear reactors require more people than just those with a nuclear science degree. Just like the coal and oil industries, these jobs at the coal and oil industries can be transitioned over to the nuclear industries because they both have a background in energy. And when you think about it, coal and nuclear energy are just different ways of producing electricity. Now, nuclear power plants have to have sites running in the cities, just like the ones at the INL. There are sites running in the cities that don't have any actual reactors in them, but are still employed by the Idaho National Laboratory, which includes researchers and people who have to manufacture and machine the reactors and the buildings themselves. In fact, there's always going to be a need for more carpenters and machinists and other trade works, as well as unskilled work that can be transitioned over from the coal and oil industry. But unlike the coal and oil industry, there is no unskilled work on an oil plant or an oil rig. You need someone with a degree, which limits the amount of jobs that are available to everyone. When we transition to the nuclear industry, there are actually more jobs available because there's more amounts of unskilled work, and that the fact that nuclear power plants require more people to keep them up and running. Now, coal mines and oil rigs are dangerous. They're much more dangerous to work on than a nuclear reactor. They are filled with explosive chemicals, invisibly burning fires, and toxic gas that can be released in an instant. Coal also pollutes the atmosphere, causing thousands of deaths worldwide, and not to mention the deaths caused by the poor air quality. When it comes to jobs and the environment, nuclear power is the way to go. Now, with all the benefits that nuclear power has to offer, why is it not taken off? Well, this is due to social stigmas. People hear nuclear power, and their minds jump instantly to disasters that happened years ago under corrupt regimes like the Chernobyl disaster. Celebrities like Al Gore have protested against nuclear energy, saying that they are too expensive or too out there to ever be able to implement. Now, the problem here is that they didn't consider transitioning the subsidies that we pay to the coal and oil industries, billions of dollars every year, to transition to the nuclear energy and fund a nuclear power plant. Like I mentioned, 1 trillion kilowatt hours of electricity can power Los Angeles for 1,213 years, and it won't even kill anyone up until 10 times that long has occurred when it comes to the nuclear power industry. Policies set by Jimmy Carter set the nuclear industry back decades because the policies that were put in place under his rule, under his presidency, were actually pushing energy way too hard, and the everyday people started to rebel against it. He would punish people who used non-renewable energy sources, and thus people would not want to listen and then fight back against these nuclear energies. What we need today, and what is occurring today, is a slow, methodical approach to nuclear energy, educating people like you and showing why nuclear energy is the way to the future. Now, another big concern about nuclear energy and the stigma that has been around it in cartoons and movies is nuclear waste. Now, all the nuclear waste in the world, number one, can be buried up to a level of 10 yards underneath the area of a football field, which if you think about it at first, it seems like quite a lot of nuclear waste. But in fact, the coal industry produces this amount of waste every single hour, constantly. Every single hour that happens. And all the nuclear waste in the entire United States fits under the level of a football field. In fact, we even have a place to put it. It's called Yucca Mountain, which you can see in this photo here. But the problem is with Yucca Mountain has lost funding due to people not thinking it was an essential service, which requires people like you to push towards these legislators, showing them that nuclear energy is an essential service and should be the future of energy right now. Now, another concern is, what about if we run out of fuel? How do we know if nuclear energy is an actual renewable energy source? Well, with the amount of uranium, we have enough uranium to run nuclear power plants for hundreds of years. And in fact, using these new reactors called breeder reactors, we can actually take other elements and manufacture them into nuclear fuel. But again, through governments not thinking that breeder reactors are essential, breeder reactors are currently not under construction. So even though we have the technology to produce more nuclear fuel, we don't because of the social stigma. Which is why we need to fight the social stigma, and why you need to fight the social stigma of nuclear power. What you can do is be educated, be passionate, and think for the future. And the future is nuclear energy. I hope today you've been enlightened by the numerous benefits of nuclear energy, and can see how it is no longer a scary killer like it used to be in the 1950s. Our times have changed since then, and nuclear energy has to change as well. But while nuclear energy sits in the past, we are moving into a future full of pollution and killing thousands of people and numerous harms that nuclear energy simply doesn't have. The benefits of nuclear energy far outweigh the harms. And when people like you take action, we can all have a part in society's success.